So a few weeks ago I was explaining why I felt that the time had come to revisit the rationale behind my layout. In today's video I'm going to share with you my plans for the new direction that Fairview is taking in 2024. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Fairview. So last time I discussed the concept of my layout, I looked at the backstory of Fairview as a fictional town along the prototypical Moffat subdivision in Colorado. And I explained that I'd come to the realization it simply wasn't working for me. I was feeling rather trapped by my attempts to replicate a small section of this rather iconic prototypical line running west out of Denver and up into Colorado's famous Rocky Mountains. And in short, it was not really all that much fun. Well, since I made that video, I've spent quite a lot of time thinking about how I might achieve some revised goals for my layout. And I started by drawing inspiration from other modelers who've gone through similar processes before me and who have produced outstanding layouts which in some way reflected my own goals for my modelling. Of course, there are lots and lots of inspirational layouts out there these days, so I started to look much more closely at other people's model railroads to work out the rationale which they had applied to their own layouts. Some of them are simply fantastic. Many of them inspire me in some shape or form, and all of them have taught me valuable lessons when it comes to approaching the modelling of my own layout here in Fairview. Some are massive basement filling empires. Some are very small shelf layouts. Many that I watch are American or Canadian layouts, although some that I watch are UK based. One or two are even European layouts. Several that I watch are N-gauge. The majority are HO, although the British layouts of course are the equivalent 00 gauge. And crucially, there are far too many for me to name here, but as I looked through all the different layouts I follow and tried to narrow down the criteria of what appealed to me most about all these layouts, I gradually settled on 3 or 4 in particular, which in various ways have had a disproportionate impact on helping me to refine the concept I now want to apply to Fairview. Let's have a quick look at some of them. First of all then, Cam Nealy's HO Marias Pass Railroad. This is a prototypical layout based on the picturesque BNSF mountain route and has great prototypical operations in a relatively modest space, only something like 10 or 12 feet wide by I think barely even 20 feet long, and set in a stunning scenic landscape which really puts you into the heart of the action when it comes to mountain railroading. Then there is the N-gauge Alberta Southern Railroad. This is Grant Eastman's superb proto-freelanced layout set in British Columbia, and more than I think any other I've watched, certainly in recent times, this layout really shows off the advantages of N-scale at its very best, with super long trains winding through stunning mountain scenery. What's interesting though is how Grant supplements real-life operations with his own fictitious model railroad, which kind of gives him the best of all worlds in that respect.
Is on using trees to establish sight lines and extend the linear feel of a layout. And the third covers the testing and ultimately why.
And finally there's this, the BNSF Fall River Division, John Parker's outstanding HO scale layout, which combines stunning scenery with massive operational potential. The scale of John's layout is simply awesome, with sections dedicated to industrial switching, large city centre yards, and simply fantastic mountain scenery over which long trains drag their goods across the Rockies. And the best bit about it is that none of it is real. Or rather, to be more precise, the Fall River Division is entirely freelanced. On his website, John states that his layout is, quote, a prototype-based freelance representation of the BNSF railway operating between the Midwest and points north through the Pacific Northwest.
Overlook on the main line. Here, this is an incredible part of the railroad that's very mountainous and representative of the Cascade and Western Mountains in the United States, with some incredible scenery and some even more incredible backdrops that really bring this scene to life.
Now, one of the things that really appeals to me when I watch videos of the Fall River Division is that John has cleverly blurred the concept behind his railroad. Essentially, he can build into his layout just about any element that he wants to model. No fear of compromising the core concept. For me, this is an absolute game changer, a fictitious but entirely plausible freelance layout where every element serves the overall concept. Well, I can't hope to replicate John's amazing railroad, but I can certainly adapt elements of his approach to my own goals. Indeed, I think plausibility lies at the heart of any good model railroad, and all three of these modelers, and many others besides, have achieved this particular element in spades. Regardless of whether they're building a prototypical layout where compromises still have to be made, a proto-freelanced mix, or an entirely freelanced model. It's the blend of concept, scenery, and operational interest which guarantees an immersive experience of being trackside or even in the cab in a perfect miniature slice of the world. So what does this mean for Fairview? Well, what it means is that I can have a plains to mountaintop layout without feeling constrained by attempts to model a real-world location. I can run Union Pacific and BNSF trains, long unit coal trains, intermodal trains, all kinds of manifest and local services, as well as a regular Amtrak service, maybe even a visiting Canadian Pacific potash train. And all these services can run over the same lines simply by creating my own fictitious location. In actual fact, the town of Fairview itself was freelance from the very start. A fictitious town on the Moffat Tunnel subdivision. So it's now obvious to me that my whole layout should be freelanced as well, so that I can kind of stop all my endless deliberations about how I should try to shoehorn Fairview into Colorado. But what I can do is locate Fairview in the eastern foothills of a fictitious part of the Rocky Mountains, with services running up to Fairview from Denver, coming down south across the Canadian border, and east-west across the Rockies from the Midwest through to the Pacific coast, Portland, Oregon, for example. I can stop worrying about whether the services I'm modelling are prototypical, stop trying to get the right kind of consists together, stop trying to model the precise tunnels or geographical features of a particular line. Instead, I can focus entirely on having fun in my own world. As far as I'm concerned, this is a win-win. Locally, there are a number of industries in Fairview itself, serviced by a local switcher, as well as a nearby industrial park, which is jointly operated by BNSF and a private operator. There are several industries on spurs along the subdivision, including a stone and aggregate quarry, a small cement transloading plant, and a paper mill. The setting will be roughly 2010 to 2015. Not all these details have been quite finalised, as you might imagine, not least because some of what I've just outlined probably requires a bigger layout, and I'm not yet sure whether that possibility will ever become a reality. I have got a track plan in mind, which would require a minimum of about 14 feet by 24 feet, so not quite double what I currently model. And I even have 2 possible locations in my house which could, at a push, be adapted to create space for this bigger layout, but none of this has been cleared yet by the domestic planning authorities at home, so I don't know whether we'll ever get there. Watch this space. But in the meantime, I want to now start to incorporate this new backstory into my rationale and plans for development of the layout. This will mean probably thinning out some locos and freight cars and acquiring some new stock. I think it will also involve me modifying some existing industries and altering some of the paperwork and processes I've been developing for my operating sessions. So I'm going to play with all this for the next few months, and of course I want to try to keep you updated both with these plans and progress on the physical layout itself. Hopefully I'll emerge later in 2024 with a reimagined and entirely more satisfactory model railway. I'm really quite excited by these plans, and I hope that you are too. And on that note, and just before I go, I've spotted the fact that I'm now approaching 1,000 subscribers, which is just beyond amazing. A massive thank you to everyone who's been following my channel from the start. A big welcome to folks who've subscribed lately. And maybe if you're not yet a subscriber, then consider liking and subscribing today, because I'll be posting more videos and updates of the progress I make on Fairview in the weeks and months ahead. I really appreciate all the support and the comments that people have posted on my videos so far, so please, 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 more of the same. So now I'll just wrap up by sharing with you some sequences of trains working hard on the layout as it exists now, but in a sense now designed to fit into the new concept of the layout. And with the Easter vacation period coming up, I hope I'll be able to post some more updates about all this quite soon. But for now, let me just take the opportunity to wish you all happy modelling and take care until the next time. Bye for now.